News legal analyst Gregg Jarrett, along with Federalist correspondent Brianna Lyman. Gregg, you've literally written the book on the nature of the corruption of the government, the attacks on President Trump, the nature of what it's willing to do. And here now, and it's kind of eking out, and now we can kind of put the pieces together of a puzzle that we knew mattered. How significant is this when we think about this back and forth? It appears like there was a back and forth between Biden and China.
Yeah, whenever Joe Biden does something highly beneficial to the Chinese, and these commutations clearly were that, his motivations are suspect. Joe Biden is compromised by his own suspected involvement in his son's China gravy train that netted some $5 million to the Biden family. Congress found the receipts. They found the wire transfers, the bank accounts, not to mention all the shell companies that were used. Is it any wonder that the father gifted his son this unprecedented blanket pardon for everything he did for 11 years, total immunity for things like money laundering, foreign lobbying crimes, violation of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, bribery, conspiracy, the list goes on. Wow. And the paper trail, Tammy, tells the story of what I think is the most audacious influence-peddling racket ever in American history, the magnitude of which we've never seen before in the sheer dollar numbers. And the evidence is compelling that Joe Biden played a pivotal role. I called him in my columns the closer. He made the deals happen. So commuting sentences for the Chinese, that fits the self-dealing pattern of Joe Biden.
Yeah, no, Brianna, this is one of the issues, of course. We ultimately find out the truth. But the presidency and the American government relies on legitimacy, on the believability and the trust that we put in it to not betray us, that we're not their commode, that this is a much bigger issue. Do you think that kind of eats away at the nature of whether or not the American people take our government seriously beyond Joe Biden? Because it should matter. We need to be able to trust our president. Perhaps that's part of the statement that this last election made.
Absolutely. And we're talking about China, so it's only fair we mention the recent report from NBC about the Chinese spy balloon. And while it's great that we talk about the details of the updates to that story, what it really does is it underscores just how untrustworthy the Biden-Harris administration and the intelligence community has been. Because remember, they spent, weeks telling us that this was a weather balloon, that there was nothing to be concerned about because they were trying to gaslight the American people and conceal the fact that they allowed our foreign adversary to fly a spy balloon over the country for 4 days with no repercussions. And then they tried to conceal it from Congress and the American people. So these types of stories should really underscore why people shouldn't not only trust the intelligence communities, but the Biden-Harris administration, especially with the backdrop of all these drone stories. If they're willing to lie to us about all these other things, what else are they going to do?
They never thought, you guys, that we would be back in charge, that the regulars, the normals, would be back in charge. They just thought that they would get away with this because they saw that spy balloon, we know, when it launched out of China, I believe, and they watched it come around to the islands and across to Alaska, and they knew it, and then they let it traverse the entire country. Gregg, when we think about the corruption in this regard, and I mentioned that Stephen Miller in the previous segment, is that it's not just Joe Biden. As you've talked about, it's the swamp. It's this entire dynamic. Do you think with the agenda that we've heard spoken about by Donald Trump and the things he's pledged, is it possible to really, and with Doge and all of this, is there a way to really bite into this pit of corruption that we're dealing with?
Well, even if you expose, let's say, half of it, it's going to be earth-shattering, shocking, breathtaking to the American public. And we need to get to the bottom of the balloon scandal. I mean, it underscores, doesn't it, Tammy, the utter contempt that the Chinese have for our weak president? Or is it the hold that they have over Joe Biden because of his son's influence-peddling racket? I mean, take your pick, but one thing's for sure, Biden never tried to punish China or hold its government accountable for such aggressive spycraft. The White House claims, oh, don't worry about it. We were able to protect sensitive sites on the ground, and we stopped any signals intelligence collection by the Chinese. Do you believe it? I don't for a minute. It sounds like a classic Joe Biden cover-up. But why did it happen in the first place?
Right.
Trump would never have tolerated such an intrusion, and I hope when he gets into office again, he declassifies the whole humiliating episode. It'll be more exposure of the deep state and their cover-up.
You know, that's a great idea, Brianna. I'll give you the last word here. That is a good idea in the sense that the president has already talked about wanting to open up files regarding the John F. Kennedy assassination, the Robert F. Kennedy assassination. I would put in there Martin Luther King Jr. assassination. That would be important as well. This attempts against him, but also these very bizarre events like the Chinese spy balloon. What occurred? What was the intelligence community doing? Do you think that would be valuable?
Absolutely. Donald Trump can give the Biden administration a masterclass in what being the administration of truth and transparency actually means. And it starts with declassifying all of these documents and more, and also giving more having more accountability in the White House. You know, Joe Biden, it wasn't just that China had contempt for him. Joe Biden had contempt for the American people because he didn't mind gaslighting us and lying to our face to try and conceal a massive scandal.
Yeah, that's it. You know, all goes down to it. Greg, you mentioned it. This is about betrayal. It's about the nature of if that's the guy that they put as president, the Democratic Party, and then Kamala, this is really the attitude, I think, of the entire Democratic Party. And this has got to be exposed completely for what it is. Greg, Brianna, great job.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.